Welcome to Seavine, We the People. I'm Linda Forsyth, and I'm joined here today again with our very best Seavine attorney, Ron Osk, who is based in Riverside, California. And he is a true patriot that is with us today about something that's really important. What we're going to discuss today is fear, and how not to allow that to divert you away from what it is that you need to do, and quite frankly, what you were meant to do. Because the worst thing you can do is to put yourself into a position of fear. And there are certain factions out there that are trying their very hardest to put all of us in a position of fear, and coming from every different direction imaginable. One of them's got to hit somebody, and it's going to probably something, because there's so many different directions, it's going to hit everybody in one way, shape, form, or another. And then this is also a spiritual battle. So it's that really evil spirit part knows exactly what it is that's going to affect you. So how do you handle that? And what do you do? Because right now, chaos and division and fear is running rampant. So Ron is a former Marine, although there is no such thing as a former Marine. You always keep the attitude that his Marine hat. There is so much that they teach you. And so I am going to talk to Ron a little bit, because he has a few things to say to you. And then I'll have a few things. Ron, what did they teach you in the Marine Corps, and any suggestions? And what have you seen in the past because of you have applied it?
Okay, first of all, you have to, you get yourself organized. You have to understand what's the mission, what's the objective, what's the plan, what's your purpose, and once you do that, and then you do everything you can to stick to this plan, it's amazing what men have done under extremely difficult situations like that. But most of us are not in. I was never in combat, for your information. I was never. So I can't tell you from personal experience in that respect, but I know what I was trained to do. But I live in a world that's very volatile. I'm a lawyer, and I'm surrounded by crises every day. I'm dealing with people that every day. I'm talking to people whose lives are in crises. And these crises, then, if we take on the case, we live in this world of crises. Then we live in this world where we're ducking bullets. So if you're in a crisis, if you're living in fear, the first thing you got to do is remember, why are you here? You've got a family, a spouse, a job, a career, a business. You got to stick to your guns and not allow yourself to be distracted. You have to be able to keep your eye on the ball. You got to keep your eye on the goalpost, because everybody and their brother is going to be trying to distract you. And aside from that, there's nothing like being prepared. For example, I don't see anything wrong with people buying little generators that are for sale now. You get a little gasoline generator for your house. So if your electricity goes out, you got a source of electricity. There's nothing wrong with stashing bottles of water. There's nothing wrong with stashing some food, because if you're in a crisis situation, you don't know what it's going to be, but you can't allow this to distract you. You've got to go to work every day. You got to take care of your family. You go to church on Sunday if you're a churchgoer. If you belong to clubs or organizations that meet, you should go to your meetings, participate. Do not allow these people to disrupt your life. Do not allow them to take away what makes your life good and what makes it good for your family. Put yourself, your family, your job first, and let these people knock themselves out. And yeah, we're dealing with enormous uncertainty. When the president himself and his wife are both diagnosed, it's pretty obvious that they're going to be quarantined for a few days, and they'll be back out. They're not going to wind up in a box, but you've got all the Antifas, all the rioting in the streets. It's still going on. It's probably going to be worse. You've got foreign governments that, of course, that are always trying to take us down, but they've always been trying to take us down. There's been foreign countries our whole life that have been trying to take us down. We elect some very good people to go to Washington, D.C. We put together the best military in the world. They're the most modern, the most well-trained military. They're not going to take us down. So that's the best I can tell you.
Well, you said something to me before the show. You were telling me that when you were 6 years old, there's some things that you remembered about Pearl Harbor. Right. I don't know if you were in Hawaii or where you were, but you mentioned something that, I mean, I thought it was excellent advice, some observation that you see. Why don't you tell everybody what that was?
Well, okay, for example, all of a sudden, the federal government started drafting our finest, our 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, okay? I say kids, adults. They drafted them and trained them and sent them off to war. Now, we know that some of these people weren't going to come back, and even the ones that came back, a lot of them were damaged. I still remember having a close association with a guy. We called it, now we call it PTSD, but then we called it shell shock. And I remember this guy could not hold a job. He was a nice guy. I was friendly with him. He was friendly with me, but there was no way in the world this guy could have had a career or anything else. Because he was a casualty. My mother had a neighbor not too far from her who died on the Indianapolis a couple of days after the Japanese surrendered, because the Japanese submarine commander didn't get the word, and he fired a torpedo and sunk the Indianapolis. And our dear friend Fletcher, he was married, he was a commander, which is a notch below a captain, and he married, had kids, he died. Mm-hmm. But people didn't panic. In fact, people volunteered to go to war right and left. Men left their families, they left their businesses and went to war because they felt they needed to. People went to work in factories far away from home to make things that were needed in the war. Everybody pitched in. Everybody did their part. Little kids did their part. Everybody did, but nobody panicked. Nobody panicked. We were in extreme peril, but nobody panicked. Everybody just did their job every day. Everybody worked with the government or whoever the entities were to try to make it happen. And it was an extreme crisis. I mean, we were up against huge armies that were trying to attack us. The Japanese in the Pacific and Hitler in Europe. And to make things worse, Roosevelt, and I give him credit for this, made a deal with a worse guy who was Stalin. He made a deal with Stalin because he knew he either had to make a deal with somebody in order to win the war. He made a deal with Stalin, who was a terrible person, but it worked. He got enough out of Stalin to win the war. And so anyway, we got through that crisis. Our whole country got through that crisis. The guys came back from the military. They got jobs, they got married, they had kids, they built houses. Life was beautiful, but we never panicked. And right now we can't panic. We cannot allow all this stuff to cause us to panic. So the worst enemy we have are not the people that are causing the problems. The worst enemy we have is ourselves if we allow it to eat us alive.
I think that especially that last statement is the most important, because you are in control of how you feel. You can be proactive in what you are doing instead of reactive, and understand that there are people out there going out of their way, trying to divert you away by utilizing anything and everything that will create fear. And a lot of it isn't true. A lot of it isn't true, or it's twisted, or it's bloviated. And it's very, very simple. Trump has overcome the most horrific attacks from every imaginable angle on a constant barrage since before he even ran. And as soon as he ran, it just exploded. And it didn't ease up. It's been 24/7 ever since before he became inaugurated. And it's continued and increased. He has been accused of any and every imaginable thing that somebody could come up with. And all these individuals as witnesses or whichever coming out of the woodworks, trying anything and everything possible to take down our president, and in some cases setting him up to be taken down. And in every single case, he's always been 5 steps ahead. I will tell you this, because I had worked with him many years ago, just for a short period of time, but there were a lot of things that I saw. And one thing I do know, because he's always fascinated me, is I've always studied what made this guy tick. He's always been a very strong adherent to Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu, last name is spelled Tzu, from a couple thousand years ago, a Chinese general that wrote the book that is still used today called The Art of War. Very strong adherent to studying it, which is what inspired him to write the book, The Art of the Deal. He has always used those principles, and he obviously is very good at it. And even if there's some difficulties that he's gotten into, he's always found a way to strategize. He never quit. So if you think for a second, the fact that he was diagnosed with COVID, and so was Melania, and any other possible thing that you see coming out of the woodworks within the next couple of weeks is going to slow him down, then you haven't been watching for the last couple of years. It's going to be okay. We are going to get our country back. And we are not, and this is another thing that needs to be remembered. We, the people, are in charge of this country. We, the people, elect individuals to represent us in the Senate and in Congress, and all the public servants that are out there. We choose. And if somebody isn't doing their job, what do? You fire them, and you bring somebody else in. You're fired. And then you make certain that the person you put in there is going to represent your best interest of we the people. This is where we're at right now. We may be getting in some pretty scary situations. I am not negating that. But I also know that the history of America, any time that there has been difficulties and situations that have come our way, we have all joined together to fight for our country, for our family, for our homes. And that's what we're going to do now. And we're going to keep the faith. And for those of you who are Bible reading, take some time and read Hebrews 11, chapter 1, because that gives an excellent example of exactly what it is you need to be right now. It's all about faith and action. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. And if you've never read that entire chapter, take the time to do it, because there were some people in some pretty horrific situations, and they got through it with faith. Now, if you put your faith in fear or believing fear, then you are putting your faith in the wrong direction. You want the peace of the Lord? You want guidance? You know where you need to put your faith. Ron, do you have any last words before we sign off today?
No, except to say that keep the faith, keep the faith, keep the faith. Pray a lot, but don't allow yourself to be distracted. The good guys are going to prevail over the bad guys, and we're going to get through this. But don't allow yourself to be distracted. If your kids are supposed to be at school, send them to school. If they're supposed to be homeschooled, then homeschool them. If you're supposed to go to work, go to work. Don't be distracted. Okay?
Do what you were supposed to do. Okay, everybody, we will see you next time. I'd love to hear in your comments your thoughts. Let's have a discussion about this and know that we are all here for each other. Good day, everybody.
Good day, everyone.